A feral thought struck me on my 12th birthday. Destroy every single kid at my birthday party. I didn't act on it, unfortunately. I could never, right? Nuh-uh. Like that stopped the intrusive thoughts fogging my brain. Around me, voices sang happy birthday in a shaky symphony. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Matilda. Happy birthday to you. I clenched my teeth at the balloons bobbing, the food covering the table, and my father smiling proudly at me. "Cut the cake, sweetheart," he said, gesturing to my hand holding the knife. I bit my cheek. The other kids' voices blurred into white noise, and the knife suddenly felt too heavy, too sharp. I stood grinning at the cake, ready to spit all over the candles. My gaze snagged on the girl across the table. That thought turned vivid. How easy it would be to drag the blade across her throat. 2 strokes, maybe 3. Hardly any mess. And the tablecloth is red. Once the thought rooted itself in my skull, it refused to leave. Slowly, I lifted my eyes to my father. The adults would be harder. They would fight back. My wandering gaze found his tie tucked into his collar, and I knew exactly how to asphyxiate him. I knew every weakness. Their voices became too loud. I hated them. My grip tightened on the knife. So easy, I thought dizzily. It would be so easy to kill them all. It was so close that I could see it. Nuh-uh. Cut the cake, you. Focus. I told myself, and the cake was so pretty. My favorite color. 12 flickering candles smothered in orangeade light. I started to move toward it, unaware that my fingers were stroking the serrated edge of the blade, slicing my skin. "Matilda!" My best friend's voice sounded so small and far away. I became aware of my happy smile twisting into disgust. I hated her. The knife felt like an extension of my arm, and I wanted to make her hurt. I wanted her to stop smiling. I don't know how much time passed before the singing stopped, and the other kids backed away. I found myself turning towards my best friend, tightening my grip on the hilt. Her throat first, I thought, imagining the blade in her jugular, and then down the stomach and disemboweling her. The Hydra. I started giggling, which turned into full belly laughs and snorts that I couldn't stop. I flinched when warm hands wrapped around mine, slowly peeling the knife back. Blinking rapidly, all the colors bled back into the world. My father knelt in front of me. Before he could speak, I sucked in a breath and stumbled back, my gaze fixated. I didn't have to say anything. We both knew. My hand stung like the world's worst paper cut. I squeezed my fist and stared at the red droplets. No matter what Dad or my therapist told me, it was beautiful. I didn't care what anybody else had to say. My mind was too far gone. My thoughts were too intrusive and powerful over my sense of being. The thought of slashing my best friend's throat and painting my Wizards of Waverly Place birthday cake a glorious, startling red filled me with an emotion that I couldn't comprehend. I hated Wizards of Waverly Place. Blood oozing and pooling and trickling, spattering and painting skin, walls, carpet, flooring. Cakes, exploding and imploding from the backs of heads, dripping from noses and lips and tainting flesh. Exquisite. Still, as quickly as the thoughts came, they slipped away, leaving me sick to my stomach. I will never forget the look on my best friend's face. She was terrified of me, and there was no way to undo that. The 6 moves, 6 towns, each time I thought that I was better. I thought I was cured, but I was naive. That feeling always came back, and that was enough to send me spiraling. "Dad?" My voice was soft. My fingers felt raw without the knife. I choked on a sob. "Did I do it again?" His smile splintered. No, of course not. It was a slip-up, okay? You're fine, sweetie, I promise." "Did I scare you?" I whispered. And Dad chuckled awkwardly. "No, of course not." He was already turning to apologize to the party guests. "I'm so sorry." His voice was like a blade sliding into my brain. "My daughter, she has a condition." The guests murmured among themselves. "Condition?" Mrs. Leela, Wendy's mom, let out a horrified laugh. "You call that a condition? She needs to be institutionalized." Before my dad could answer, she was dragging her daughter away. The others followed, muttering words I didn't fully understand. Psychosis, schizophrenic, nutcase. Whatever, I just wanted my knife back. When they left, Dad pulled me into his chest and shook his head, whispering that it hadn't happened again and that it never would. But I knew better. I squeezed myself against him, letting him trap my arms. It would. Because even pressed against his jacket, which smelled like cologne and home, my body trembled with the urge to do the unthinkable. "He's weak," my mind whispered. "I can overpower him. Go for the heart." And Dad told me that it was okay, but I couldn't hug him. Because I knew if I freed my arms, if I relaxed my muscles, they would go around his neck, snapping it without a second thought. 6 weeks ago, I was sitting in a coffee shop with my housemates. I can't remember what I was working on. My laptop sat open, abandoned hours ago. Freddie sat opposite of me, eyes glued to his phone. I was staring into the dregs of my coffee when Freddie's boyfriend, Isaac, finally slumped into a chair, throwing an arm around him. Brainwashing support group, huh? He leaned back, brow raised. Well, that's ominous. That caught my attention. I lifted my gaze. What? Isaac pointed behind me. Looks like the freshmen are playing weird stuff again. His voice faded as I twisted in my chair to look at the poster. It looked new, printed in Times New Roman. Brainwashing support group. Underneath, join us at the campus library. We're a small group, everyone is welcome. Our aim is to find survivors willing to share. Maddie? Freddie's low murmur pulled me back to reality, though the words on the poster were seared into my brain. We left the cafe, my housemates chatting between themselves. I trailed behind, trapped in the past. I wasn't even aware that I had stopped walking. Hey, I'm gonna head back to campus to study, I heard myself say. Freddie paused, turning to look at me. Are you okay? You just seem off. Tired, I said. Tired. He looked skeptical. Did all that espresso go straight to your brain? I groaned. I'm fine. Go on ahead. They exchanged glances. Sure, Freddie rolled his eyes. Have fun. The two of them walked away, Isaac dragging my roommate into a run. Initially, I had no idea where I was going. I stopped in front of the campus library, its tall, shadowed facade looming over me. I had always thought of it as a safe place, though not tonight. Warm light spilled across the walkway as I stepped toward the doors, ready to pull them open and escape inside. And that's when I noticed him, a figure leaning casually against the wall. As I drew closer, his features sharpened into focus. A guy about my age, thick brown hair falling into his eyes, a trench coat thrown over jeans and a simple tee. A crumbling cigarette dangled between his fingers, smoke curling lazily into the air. He had just enough of a striking presence to make me hesitate. I turned toward the door, ready to slip inside, but at the last second I faltered. To avoid looking obvious, I pulled out my phone and pretended to check a message. "Your phone isn't on, genius." The guy surprised me with a gruff laugh. He was right. My phone had died halfway through my study session. Choosing to ignore him, I shoved my phone in my pocket. "Are you going in?" When he turned to me, the building's light casting his face in sharp relief, something inside of me snapped. Fight or flight surged through my veins. His lips curved around the cigarette and I couldn't look away, mesmerized by the fluidity of his movements and the glint in his eyes, a glint that was far too familiar. I knew that smile. I knew those sharp, precise motions. My mind felt like it was unraveling. Until this moment, it was as if he had chosen to hide himself. My body moved before my brain caught up. I stumbled back, breath stolen from my lungs, and in a blur of unnatural speed, he grabbed me and slammed me against the wall. "Do you know how many colleges we've been to?" He gasped through a hysterical giggle that didn't match his 18-year-old voice. He carried the childlike innocence of an 8-year-old trapped in a grown body, but that psychotic smile, the one that I knew so well, twisted his lips. "Every college town, every university that you can imagine searching for you. And here you are." His breath tickled my face. "I didn't think you were stupid enough, but here you are, hook, line, and sinker. So close, I knew exactly how to get away. One jerk of my hand and I could break his neck, but I couldn't move." And then came the sound of running footsteps and ghosting closer and dancing toward me, and a single horrifying thought struck me. They found me. The guy stepped closer, one hand slamming me against the rough brick, his fingers digging into my throat. He still smelled like burning, as if for the last 10 years he had never stopped, ignited bones and hair set alight, mimicking the orangeade glow of the sunset. "Matilda," he hissed, spitting each letter in my face. His smile twisted, more evil by the second. Leaning in further, his breath was ice cold, buckling my knees. "I'm sorry, I must be going insane. Correct me if I'm wrong, but do you not remember our orders?" He didn't kill me. Instead, his grip loosened and he took a step back. The boy shoved his hands in his pocket and pulled out a $20 bill. "Do you want to go for a coffee?" His grin widened, waving the cash. He wrapped his fingers around my wrist. I hesitated. In therapy, I was taught to stay calm and to think. One wrong move and this man was going to snap my fingers one by one. His grin hadn't mentally passed the 4th grade. "I'm paying," he sang, twisting around and violently pulling me with him. This boy reminded me why I tried to kill my friends at my 12th birthday party, why I had been in solitary confinement for a whole year. Elementary school. I lost my mind in elementary school. I remember walking into class with a bounce in my step. It was spring and I was enjoying the cherry blossoms outside. I ran around trying to catch petals with my hands when Dad told me to head inside. I wasn't expecting a new teacher when I slumped into my seat with my brand new scented erasers and sparkly gel pens. I was used to Mrs. Clarabelle, who wore pretty dresses and had rainbow-colored hair that smelled like apples. Instead of her, a stranger stood at the front of the class, and from my classmates' expressions, none of them knew who she was. She didn't look like a teacher. Unlike Mrs. Clarabelle's extravagantly colored dresses, this woman wore a black suit. Her hair was in a strict ponytail, and a pair of Ray-Bans pinned back her fringe. Ross Torres leaned across his desk, eyes wide. "Are you a secret agent?" I had to agree. She really did look like a secret agent. I loved watching spy movies, so it was jarring to sit right in front of one. When the woman's lip quirked into a slight smile, I relaxed in my chair. "No," she said, before turning to the whiteboard and grabbing a pen. "But I will be your teacher starting today." "Where's Mrs. Clarabelle?" Ross pulled a face, leaning back. "She was my favorite." "Yeah," Evie Claire joined in, standing with her arms folded. If there was a social hierarchy in elementary school, Evie was at the top. I usually stayed away from her. Her parents were rich and she often looked down on other kids who weren't as well dressed. She had her own little group of minions who followed her like she was a queen. When Evie stood, she spoke for the class like she had when Mrs. Clarabelle banned Tamagotchis. Evie had led a rebellion, convincing us to refuse lunch if we weren't allowed Tamagotchis. Surprisingly, the ban was lifted. This girl is like our third-grade class spokesperson, I thought. "You could be a stranger," Evie said. "Where's Mrs. Clarabelle? She is our teacher." Something darkened in the woman's eyes and she cleared her throat. "Please sit down. I'll explain once you take your seat." She cleared her throat again. "Also, I am not stupid. Young lady, I can see the candy under your desk." Her gaze flitted to Ross. "And yours," she held out her hand. "Throw it in the trash, please. I do not allow candy in my classroom." The two of them complied. Evie took dramatic strides, pretending to toss gold-plated candy into the trash, but she got rid of it. "Okay, now that that's taken care of, I watched our new teacher write. 'Hello, my name is Mrs. Hannah,' followed by a giant smiley face. Underneath, 'Can you tell me your names?' Mrs. Hannah." Evie raised her hand, a sly smile on her lips. "The smile on that smiley face is wonky." "So?" Ross turned to her with a grin. "Why do you care, weirdo?" "Well, because," Evie slapped her desk, "I don't like wonky things. That smile is wonky and I want her to change it." Mrs. Hannah nodded. "Oh, right, I'm sorry, Evie." She winked, wiped away the smile with a flick of her finger and redrew it. "Or should I call you Princess Evie?" She laughed when Evie looked startled, and then did a dramatic spin to face all of us. "Okay, as I said, I need your names, don't I?" She pointed to the back row. "Do you want me to start calling you names that pop into my head?" "No!" we all shouted back. "Well, hurry." Mrs. Hannah had an energy that our old teacher didn't. Mrs. Clarabelle had been sweet and quiet. Miss Hannah was more daring, making classes a lot more fun. Instead of planting flowers and singing songs, we were allowed to scream. She pointed right at me. "You're Ozzy, right?" She chuckled, moving on to Mara Highcliffe behind me. "Oh, and you look like a Benny Two Shoes." Evie pointed to herself. "What about me?" Pegasus." The girl giggled and then slammed her hand over her mouth in mock horror. "Pegasus is a stupid name." "What about me?" Ross jumped up, raising his arm. Can I have a funny name? Mrs. Hannah turned to him, her lip curling. She pretended to think, tapping her chin. Phoenix. The class erupted with laughter, kids yelling their real names, and I joined in, shouting mine along with the others. Ross, Mara, Sadie, Evie, Jasper, Pippa, Matilda. I cupped my mouth to make sure that I was loud enough. Ozzy was a cool name. Nodding to each of us, Mrs. Hannah covered the whiteboard with all of our names and then put the lid back on the pen. Well, it's nice to meet all of you. And so our classes began. The best part was that Mrs. Hannah didn't make us do proper work. Instead, in what she called special classes, we had to focus hard to read what was written on a blank piece of paper. Initially, I couldn't read it. None of us could, no matter how hard we squinted and flipped the paper over, frowning at it from different angles. Mrs. Hannah reassured us that we were close. I was never close. The paper had hurt my head, a dull throb creeping across my head. Practice makes perfect, she would always sing when the kids started to cry with frustration. The girl sitting behind me, Pippa, began complaining that her head was hurting too. But with the pain came clarity. One day, Pippa jumped in, raising her hand, her lips split with glee. Mrs. Hannah, she squealed, waving the paper in the air. Every day we were expected to spend at least an hour trying to read the paper. None of us had even come close. We only got headaches. Adam Moore got a nosebleed. Pippa wasn't exactly the smartest in the class. She thought that Canada was the capital of Australia. So we were all surprised when she had jumped from her desk, announcing that she could finally see it. I could tell from the crinkle between her brows and the slight curl in her lip that she was in pain. I did it, she squealed, attracting Mrs. Hannah's attention. The teacher straightened up from where she had been helping Eleanor. She raised her hand, quieting the classroom from the buzz of chatter following Pippa's announcement. Oh, Mrs. Hannah's eyes glittered, her pearly smile widening. What does it say, Pippa? I didn't notice how pale the girl was until I looked at her properly. It says... Pippa cleared her throat dramatically, making sure everyone was listening and that she was the center of attention. I didn't like Pippa. She pretended to be a smarty pants, despite knowing all her test answers were wrong. I couldn't help feeling jealous. It says... Pippa dragged out the words, giggling. Oh, she's taking too long. Ross grumbled in front of me. He stuck his tongue out. Yeah, I bet she's lying, Evie said loudly. Can you tell us? We're getting bored. The girl mimed a yawn and the rest of the class giggled. Unless you're lying again. Pippa's eyes narrowed. I'm not lying. Pippa was a known liar. According to Pippa, her dad worked at Nintendo, her mom owned Sephora, and she was a lost princess of an unknown English town. Well then tell us what it says. Evie's lip curled. You're just pretending. Evie, that's enough. Mrs. Hannah shot her a look and Evie backed down, turned around in her chair and huffed loudly. The teacher's attention flicked back to Pippa. All right, what does it say? You can tell the whole class, don't worry. They'll be able to see it soon. Nodding, Pippa showed us the blank piece of paper with a smug giggle. It says we're going to do something really special. What does that mean? Ross asked, frowning. Mrs. Hannah pretended to zip her lips. Well, I'm not supposed to tell you, but... She leaned forward and so did we eagerly. You're going to have a very special session, she whispered. I'm not supposed to tell you, so you have to be quiet. Her words confused me. Who are you not supposed to tell? I asked, cocking my head. Miss Hannah's gaze found mine, and for the first time they were hard. Her smile widened, but it wasn't as warm as usual. Do you want to be in the special class or not, Matilda? I shrugged, my cheeks blazing when my classmates giggled. Yes, I whispered. Well, special children do not ask questions that do not concern them. Do you understand, Matilda? And ducking my head, I nodded. Yes, Mrs. Hannah. With the promise of an extra special class if we all managed to see through the invisible paper, our class tried harder. There were more headaches, more nosebleeds, and crying. Before Ross jumped up from his chair one day, practically vibrating with glee. I think he was so excited that he didn't notice blood dripping down his chin. I jumped up, immediately running for the toilet paper. Ross batted my hands away when I tried to wipe at his nose. I didn't like that he wasn't looking at me. He was staring right through me, eyes flickering, like he didn't know who I was. There wasn't much blood, but he wasn't even trying to wipe it away, eyes gleaming. Stop, he giggled. I'm fine, I saw it. Mrs. Hannah cleaned him up and praised him, promising him and the other kids that they could go on the field trip. Evie was next. Of course she was. The girl was super dramatic, twirling in her dress, claiming she was the best because she didn't suffer a headache or a nosebleed. I did, however, glimpse her shoving bloody tissue paper into the trash during recess. I started to notice a change in the kids who had begun to see the hidden message on the paper, and in the rest of us who were still struggling. Pippa had grown unusually silent since announcing that she could read the paper. Mrs. Hannah had given her extra work to do, but every time I slipped past her to go to the bathroom, I noticed she wasn't even writing. Her eyes were half-lidded, her lips set in a dreamy smile. Pippa could see something that I couldn't. Swallowing a thick paste that crept up my throat, I realized that her expression scared me. It reminded me of my mom's when I said goodbye to her 4 years ago. Mom didn't even make eye contact, just grabbed my hand and muttered my name. Needless to say, I really didn't want to be left out of the special class. Despite my classmates acting weird, I forced myself to break through the barrier. She explained that there is a barrier inside of every brain. To make it easier to understand, she did a theatrical reenactment. Extra goofy, of course. Mrs. Hannah stood in front of a desk and made a dramatic face. This, she said, tapping the wooden surface, is your brain, everyone. We all laughed and she rolled a chair into place. And this is the barrier keeping you from reaching your potential. That's what I want you to do with your paper. Imagine breaking the barrier so that you could see the desk clearly. Breaking the chair, we all sang as our teacher jumped onto the desk and pumped her arms. Breaking the chair. So that's what I did, or I tried to. I was one of the last ones to break through the barrier. One night, I asked Dad if he could help me solve a problem. Mrs. Hannah told us not to tell our parents about the fun games that we were playing, so I asked him about a very hard math sum. He looked up from his laptop, offering a pensive smile over his coffee. Try relaxing your mind and thinking about something else, Dad said. And then, who knows, maybe if you put less strain on yourself, it might come to you. He pulled a face. I can give you the answer if you want. I did exactly what Dad told me. I didn't think about the blank piece of paper all night, and during normal classes, I pushed it out of my head. At recess, there was nobody to play with anymore. The kids who could read the message stayed in class, staring into thin air. Sometimes Mrs. Hannah brought people in to talk to them. They weren't teachers. I didn't know who they were. All of them had scary faces and they were my dad's age. I watched them poke and prod my classmates, asking questions like, "Are you able to see this?" while holding several blank pieces of colored cards. Ross, Evie, and the others nodded, while Mrs. Hannah stood by with an odd look on her face. I decided that day that I would become like them. I wouldn't be left out like the other two kids. And so I slumped down at my desk, put my head down, and glared at the paper until a dull pain blossomed behind my eyes. The lights above me suddenly far too bright. Blank. I stared harder. Blank. I gritted my teeth so hard that I could taste rusty coins at the back of my mouth. And getting progressively more frustrated, I decided to pretend that I didn't care. Just like when my PlayStation didn't work and I squeezed my eyes shut, praying for the game to load. Trying the same tactic, I clenched my fists and mentally told the piece of paper I didn't care. I was through with caring. Stubbornly, I sat with my arms folded, staring into the backs of my eyes before deciding that I had spent enough time ignoring the paper. Cracking one eye open, I expected to find the same blank sheet in front of me. However, this time the paper wasn't blank. I was half aware of rivulets of sharp, startling red spotting pallid white. "You're in the special class." Dad was right. Ignoring my own blood staining the collar of my shirt and pooling on my desk, my lips split into a grin. I was trying too hard, forcing it. That had been stopping me. Once I told everyone that I could see the paper, I was led into the secret group. This time we had to visualize certain things in front of us. It started with a stuffed animal. That was easy. I could visualize it perfectly until I could reach out and touch its prickly fur. It felt real, like I was touching a real stuffed toy. But then the images started to get blurry and I lost track of the time. So did the sessions. I remembered the start of them, but time seemed to pass quickly. Before I knew it, I was sitting in the back of Dad's car trying to remember what I had been doing all afternoon. But still, I was happy that I broke through the barrier. I did start getting nosebleeds a lot, also falling asleep and forgetting things. I remember sitting in front of the TV watching SpongeBob. But the next thing I knew, I was halfway down our driveway, and Dad's hand was on my shoulder. "Maddie!" It was his third attempt at shouting my name, and finally his voice slid into my brain. I awoke barefoot, my soles on prickly concrete that felt like an anchor, something that I could hold on to. I wanted to tell Dad about the sessions, but Mrs. Hannah had made us promise not to tell our parents. Dad didn't want to send me to school the next morning. He said that I could stay home and watch cartoons, but I didn't want to miss out on the extra class. So despite feeling like crap, I insisted that I was okay and told him to drive me to school. Ross was standing outside, though his expression was scary. He didn't look at me when I asked if he was okay, and his nose was bleeding. "Ross?" I prodded him. Again, he didn't respond. "Ross?" I shoved him and he finally turned to me. I expected him to at least hit me playfully. "I don't feel well. I want to go home." I giggled. "Well, that means I'm stronger than you." His eyes narrowed. "No, you're not. You're a girl." I flicked him on the nose, expecting my friend to push me back, laughing. Ross blinked at me slowly. His eyes were half-lidded. "Do you like Mrs. Hannah's classes?" I hesitated. Saying no would make me look stupid. "Yes," I said, "obviously." Except he didn't smile. Instead, Ross swiped at his nose, turned away and strode into school, clutching his backpack. When I followed him inside, Ross had stopped on the threshold. For the first time in a while, he was awake. his gaze on our chaotic classroom. Pippa was standing on the desk, waving her arms and laughing, and Evie was screaming at her to get down. The rest of the kids trying to egg them into fighting. For a moment, I was confused why the classroom was so crazy. But then my gaze found the empty space where Mrs. Hannah should have been. Mrs. Hannah was never late. Ross found his desk quickly and I followed, slumping into my own. I twisted around to ask Mara what was happening before the door flew open, crashing into the wall. Mrs. Hannah stepped into the classroom, and immediately Pippa hopped off the desk and Evie backed into her seat, her eyes wide. Mrs. Hannah didn't comment on the fighting. Instead, she strode to the front of the class without a word, picked up a whiteboard pen and began to write with enough vigor to scare us into silence. She wrote one word in block capitals spanning the entire board. Cheater. When she turned to us, I realized that she didn't look as tidy as usual. Mrs. Hannah was wearing the same pantsuit from the day before, her usual ponytail falling out, tangled strands in her eyes. She hit the board 3 times and we all jumped. I would like you to tell me what a cheater is. Her voice was different, low, a lot scarier. I had grown used to her laughter. Now, though, it was like looking at a different person. I could tell the others didn't want to speak in fear of being shouted at, but Ross Torres was brave, no matter how scary our teacher was. Leaning back in his chair, he cleared his throat. It's an animal, right? He gave a nervous giggle. They run fast. We all jumped when she hit the board again. No! Mrs. Hannah's expression was fuming. No, that is not what a cheater is. She turned back to the board. A cheater is a lying son of a... She caught herself when Evie giggled. It took her a moment to get a hold of herself before turning her attention back to us. They said it's impossible to train young children, and yet here I am. She began pacing. He said it was morally wrong. Mrs. Hannah's eyes locked on mine, her lips curling into a smile that made my stomach churn. But why would I waste it? Why would I waste weeks, no months of shaping young minds for nothing? I had no idea what she was talking about. I watched her go back and forth, entranced by her movements. She was muttering to herself. I won't get in trouble because I'm going to die, but a group of 8-year-olds, 15 snot-nosed little brats who I can prove have the potential to be something more by blowing his head off, and that girl that he's with. One of the boys gasped, and Ross quickly turned to shush him. Shh, he giggled. Mrs. Hannah's been drinking crazy juice. Our teacher's smile widened as she turned toward us, but it was a smile that I no longer trusted. Yes, Ross, I've been drinking crazy juice, but do you know what you are? Her gaze flicked erratically across all of us. What? Pippa asked. Special. What do you mean by special? Evie asked. Because my mama says I'm the only special one here. Mrs. Hannah didn't answer directly. Instead, she spoke to all of us. Who? She let out a breathy laugh. Who wants to watch TV? I wasn't sure what we were supposed to be watching. At first, I thought they were shapes that we had to name, but then the shapes grew bigger until they filled the screen. I remember lurching back in my chair, though I couldn't move. On screen, a picture of a man flashed up so fast that I bit back a shriek. When I tried to move or turn my gaze away, I couldn't. The room was pitch black except for the screen illuminating my face. I couldn't look away. I was where my body was jerking, my breathing heavy. This, Miss Hannah said, her voice rattling inside my skull. I couldn't stop myself. My mouth moved before I could think, repeating her words. This. I spat it out in unison with the others. Her words weren't just sounds. They were physical, splitting my skull, bleeding straight into my brain. Is my husband. The words tore from my lips in a river of red. Is my husband. I loved him, she continued, and so did we. I loved him. Next to me, Ross spluttered blood across his desk, eyes darting back and forth, locked on the TV screen. He cheated on me with that sly wretch, she said, tears streaking her face. He cheated on you, we echoed, with that sly wretch. Her anguish became ours, her sobs entangled us, suffocating us. Tears ran down my cheeks, but they weren't mine. Her heartbreak twisted in my chest, agonizing. And now, Mrs. Hannah spat. Blood shot from my nose. My body jerked violently. And now, her lips split into a grin. He must die. I opened my mouth, but my words were no longer mine. There was something alive crawling inside my head, and no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't get it out. The word was like poison rattling my body. Must. My head drooped, my eyes forced open, blood coating my tongue. The girl next to me wasn't moving, her left eye hanging out of its socket, but Ross sat still, smiling, unblinking, gaze fixated on the screen. Blood dripped from his lips, his chin seeping across his desk. He smelled of burning, like charred chicken, scorched eyes unblinking. Die. Damon McCory, Rain, Big Country Allen, Nelson Asada, Die Screaming, Meat Cashier, Malcolm Black, Talamagara, Justin Fotenauer, That One Woodsman, Die Can't Play, Dino, Deggy, MP Massacre 91, Leon Knott, SWAT, Kathy McGuire, Jimmy Griffin, Miss Eldridge, Dragon Slayer 048, Takio Zarilla, Sanjay Anthem, Sleepy Shroomy, Mark Norman, Minaling Gitter, Richard French, Yours Truly, Omni Rubix, Sonic GMT, Wayward Son, Caleb Windsor, Never Enough, Russell and Flo, Stevie B 7649, Ray Weingartner, Stephen King 04, Shrimpo the Shrimp, Genevieve Sweet, Lone Wolf Sam, Ivory Sage, Lunas TV, I Am Loki 5849, Chicago Born and Bred, Paige Martin, Jacob Barlett, Deuce, Chris Lalo,